Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel and to today's video all about how to pass your upcoming ACCA SBR exam first time and with a pass mark of 66. Well, today I'm delighted to be joined by Ayrton, who has passed SBR first time and with a mark of 66. So I'm delighted to welcome him onto the channel to walk and talk us through his experiences to help you out. So Ayrton, feel free to introduce yourself, my friend.
Hi James, yeah, thanks for having me on. So yeah, as James mentioned, I am an ACCA student. I've currently passed 11 of the 13 exams, SBR being my most recent pass. So yeah, just hopefully just chat through a couple of tips and tricks on how I found the whole experience, really.
Spot on, that's all right. I mean, any nuggets of information, I'm sure the students watching have got pen and paper at the ready, but we've got to get some context. First of all, did you sit SBR by itself or with another exam?
No, so I sat SBR totally on its own. I studied using Kaplan, which I'm sure a lot of the students watching this probably are in the same boat. I did it within sort of a 3-month period. So I started studying in January and did the exam in March. So yeah, obviously it's about a 12-week period to study and do the past exams and get into that position.
Nice. And there'll be some students watching this who are thinking about doing SBR. Would you recommend them doing SBR with another option paper or strategic paper? Would you recommend doing it by itself?
No, to be honest, SBR it's a proper accounting exam. Is what I found in my experience. It's very heavy on accounting knowledge. Yeah. So if I'm being totally honest, I wouldn't be able to cope with another exam. I think your sole focus should be on learning the standards that are involved and the techniques that you need to pass it. I wouldn't recommend sitting it with anything else, to be honest.
Yeah, spot on. And you were studying, I take it, weekends whilst working full time?
Yeah, so I work full time. So I was sitting the Saturday sessions with Kaplan, which is sort of 9 to 5, and then revising after work every day. I probably revised most days, just consolidating the knowledge that we learned over the past weekend, doing the homework that Kaplan set you, and then getting to a stage where you've learned the syllabus and now you're going to start practicing the practice past exam questions.
Spot on. Yeah. So, I mean, you've just done the exam, March 2022. Yeah. Walk and talk us through the first thing that comes to your mind as to if someone's got to do this exam, what's your top tip to get them through and pass?
Yeah, so probably giving yourself enough time to revise the whole syllabus is a big one. I see a lot of people on sort of ACCA student forums trying to talk about how to question pick, spot and question pick and stuff like that. And I think having the breadth of the syllabus is unfortunately one of the things that you need for this exam. It's not a case of saying, oh, I don't feel like this standard is as important as another. They can all come up. So you need to have a good breadth rather than knowing sort of say 10, 15 standards off by heart to the letter, knowing the whole sort of standards that are examinable, just, you know, having that breadth. Yeah. Obviously utilising practice questions. You're not going to pass this exam if you don't do any past exam papers, whether that's getting them marked by Kaplan, which obviously they do offer, or just practicing on the ACCA practice platform. You need to have done enough practice questions as well.
Nice. And I take it you did those to time as well, as if it was in exam conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the good things about Kaplan is that they sort of mock the ACCA platform, so you've got the timer and you can really set yourself up and do it to time, and that's going to give you the best sort of idea of where you're at. It's all well and good doing an exam question and doing it in double the time that you're allowed in the real exam, but it's not going to give you a true reflection of where you are. We can all get 100 marks when we take the exam over 6 hours or something.
Yeah, a couple of days, nice easy week.
Yeah.
Feet up on it. But coming back to the exam, were there any topics when you sat the exam where you went, oh my word, that is a very niche area of the SBR syllabus?
Yeah, I think one of the main areas that myself and a lot of other students that I've spoke to struggle with is financial instruments. That sort of word triggers a lot of students because it's a nasty topic, to be honest. But I think one thing that got me through when I was revising that the Kaplan tutors kept ringing home to us was that you don't need the depth of what different types of financial instruments are, what different types of derivatives and hedge accounting. You just need that sort of bookkeeping knowledge to know what one is, knowing that you can spot one in an exam and how to treat it in an exam, rather than the depth of knowledge about them.
Yeah, well, you talked about the standards there. There'll be lots of students who have maybe sat SBR before and also maybe failed it before. How much emphasis did you put on the technical articles that ACCA have on their website? Did you read many of them or gloss over them?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to incorporate them into your study. The technical articles are sort of one of the main areas of the syllabus. I think it's syllabus area E, something like that. It's all about sort of basically the technical articles that they put out. At the end of the day, if they're on there for a reason. There's some hot topics such as like accounting during COVID and the changes that's brought. There's been there's an article about the criticisms of the treatment of goodwill, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, stuff like that. If you don't read them, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage straight away, because they will come up. Absolutely, they come up in question 3 or question 4, guaranteed.
Yeah, I always say, look, they've written the articles. They wouldn't go to all that effort to put into it if they weren't going to be helpful on there. But what areas did you get tested on in your exam? Can you remember which sort of areas?
Yeah. So obviously, you question 1 and you question 2, you know that's groups, and then you know that it's an ethical question. So question 1 for me was a control to control scenario. So in the question, they sort of tried to lay it out as though a parent had got rid of a subsidiary by not telling you the share percentage. But actually, when you read into how many shares were available and how many they got rid of, it was control to control. So I think they had 80% at the start, they got down to 60%. So it was being able to spot that, and then not only doing the calculations for it, but actually writing that and saying the control has been obtained. So we're treating it as a decrease in the NCI. So then obviously you got your question 2, you got your ethical question, which again, if you practice enough of those and you know your pillars, your 5 ethical pillars, you can knock them out straight away.
Applying it back to the scenario as well. That's the other thing they always mention in the examiner's report.
And then just going back to the technical articles, so the one question that I can remember from question 3 and question 4, it was all about additional performance measures. So using EBITDA, and it threw a lot of people because they sort of knew what EBITDA was, but they couldn't talk about it in a context of why that shouldn't be on the face of financial statutory accounts every year. Why additional performance measures shouldn't be included with your statement of financial position, for example.
Well, you really hit the nail on the head as to you can't pass this exam just based on calculations. It's calculate and tell me about it would be the fundamental thing.
Yeah, a lot of people came out the exam on sort of ACCA platforms online, and there's that how did it go? And a lot of people, I remember reading, saying that there was hardly any calculations in that exam and they felt like it was unfair. But actually, it's set from the outset that it's more about you can't pass just using calculations alone. It's more about the words.
Spot on. And thinking about before you sat SBR, because they always mention about your financial reporting, the FR knowledge. There are some students who have exemptions, some who have sat FR. How long ago previously, when you sat financial reporting, was it before you did your SBR exam, or how important is that knowledge?
I'm in the same boat. So I had exemptions, so I was a university student at Lincoln with James. And so I sat sort of the financial reporting as advanced financial accounting at university and got the exemption from that. And that was probably 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, actually. So the main thing for me before I even started looking at SBR was brushing up on the conceptual framework, brushing up on sort of key standards that are going to come up, looking at intangibles, looking at depreciation and amortization, that type of just your basic accounting sort of stuff that comes up every day, just to brush up on it before you even dip your toes into SBR. There's no point.
Exactly. Yeah, I always mention it that if you've not done your financial reporting, or if you've got exemptions, go onto the ACCA's website, and before you even get stuck into the SBR content, just have a week or so, go over some of the FR knowledge on there, because the worst thing you do is get stuck into the SBR book and then go, oh my word, there is a lot of stuff I've got to revisit here. But just talking about SBR and after the exam, I get questions all the time of, James, should I take SBR and Advanced Audit and Assurance together, or what sort of is the best sort of position to do them in as well? I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so I'm doing Advanced Audit and Assurance in the future. Like I said, I wouldn't do it together, because from what I've read on the ACCA's website and having a look on YouTube and stuff, a lot of the standards feature in the Advanced Audit exam. So what's the point in sort of doing it together when you've already consolidated knowledge, do SBR, get your pass, and then it'll seem sort of fresher to you when you do Advanced Audit. That's my perspective. So, you might be watching this thinking, no, I'd rather do it together, but I think it's too much pressure.
I agree with you. Yeah, to be crystal clear, if I've got to do SBR and Advanced Audit and Assurance, first of all SBR, then on to Advanced Audit and Assurance, because that's definitely going to help you underpin that knowledge on there.
Yeah.
Are there any other sort of other areas that, if you had to sit the exam again, which I'm sure you'd love to do, what other areas or key points that would help a student going forward?
Yeah, just that it's not enough just to work through the learning materials that your Kaplan or whoever provides you. You've got to look at other resources that are available. So ACCA Practice Platform, absolutely. ACCA Technical Articles, absolutely. But then there's also other free resources out there. So if you sat watching this video, you're already looking on YouTube, you've got to look up Tom Clendon. I can't recommend him enough. I only used his free resources, which is his podcasts. He sometimes does sort of free lectures or sort of Instagram lives and stuff like that, where he'll just answer any questions you've got. I'd definitely look him up if you haven't already, if you don't know who he is. Because it's not enough just to go through the book and knowing the book, because you've got to apply it to a real life scenario. And when that exam comes up and there's a scenario that you've not been faced with before, you've got to know how to deal with it, rather than just knowing the standards.
Completely agree. And picturing what is going on. You mentioned it about question one in the exam you did. You were picturing as to the 80%, went down to 60, knew about control on it. If you've got a student who is very much more calculation based, I mean, what other sort of revision techniques did you use to prepare for SBR?
Yeah, so I think becoming sort of familiar with the practice platform, knowing your calculator, even though calculations aren't the be all and end all of this exam, you need to know your calculator like the back of your hand. You need to know the functions in it, your squares and your square roots and stuff like that, and knowing, being comfortable with your calculator, so you've got those tools on the day. But obviously don't rely on the calculation based questions, because you're never going to get a pass just on that. And then obviously using other resources that are out there, absolutely. Getting involved with YouTube videos, asking questions, comments on stuff that you don't get.
Spot on. I mean, past papers for me, for SBR, are just paramount. They are fundamental for it. I mean, out of interest, how many did you actually do to prepare for the exam? And the other question I always get is, how long before your examination did you start doing the past papers as well? Yeah,
absolutely. So I would say you start looking at practice questions, individual questions, as you're going along, or you should be as you're going along, because as you tick a topic off, you should then be doing a practice question on that topic. I would say probably no sort of later than a month before the actual exam. You should then be looking at a full past paper. Kaplan provides sort of 3 marked past papers, which you absolutely have to do, and you should do them to time, because they are your sort of closest guide on to where you are at that moment. But then you should also be using the ACCA. Have got so many past papers for free on their website, so you'd be daft not to at least doing, you know, a couple more, and just going through the answers and marking it yourself.
Yeah, completely agree. The more you do, the better prepared you are, and
absolutely,
it can be one of those times where you've got to do a past paper, and it might be Saturday morning, Wednesday night. You've just got to grind it out, haven't you?
Yeah, you do, but you'll be thankful for it in the end. And I think also just another point on past papers is having a game plan that you're going to use. So you're going to do that many practice past papers that you're going to have in your head where you think you're strongest. So for me, question 2, I always found that was very similar across the whole past the exam questions. So yes, the scenario is different in each question too, but the principles of it are the same. So I had that game plan in my head that no matter what came up on the exam day, I was doing question 2 first, and that is because I'd done that many past papers that I'd got that sort of game plan in my head.
Nice. And then from question 2, then did you go question 1 for the bigger question, or did you go for the smaller 3 and 4?
Because usually question 1's 30 marks and question 2's generally 20 marks. I always feel like if you go into the exam and you do question 1 first and it's not on a topic that you like, so for myself, cash flows, I would have hated if that came up, but it didn't. If I know that if I go in and I do question 2, which I'm comfortable with and I'm quite confident with, then I'm sitting there in the exam thinking, right, that's 20 marks that I've attempted. Let's say that I've got 13, 14, 15. Comfortable with that, good start, move on to question 1 and tackle that beast now, rather than doing question 1, flapping because it was a nasty one, it wasn't what you wanted, and then trying to salvage it in question 2.
I get what you mean. Yeah. I mean, the only final thing to add on to that, we've got to talk time management. How important is time management? Because I read it in the external examiners' reports. Students do not plan their time well in SBR. What are your thoughts on that from your experience?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, James, that was my sort of golden nugget final point, which is stolen from me. Stolen my thunder, but it's all right. So timing's absolutely critical. So what I did in the exam, and you can do this yourself, there is generally clocks up on the wall, but I had a wristwatch, not an electric one. Don't go into an exam with an electronic watch. And I literally, when the ACCA brought the piece of paper, the blank piece of paper that you're allowed, when the time started and you've got the 10, 15 minutes reading time right at the start, I used that time because I'd seen all the instructions before, which you should have because you've been using the practice platform. So you've seen all the instructions, skip through them. And I wrote down the times to the minute on that piece of paper in big letters. Question 2, this many minutes. Question 1, this many minutes. Question 3, question 4. And I stuck to that like gospel, because if you don't move on when that time has elapsed and you've done enough time in theory for question 2, you can't get any more marks on that question. Do you know what I mean? You've got to move on to question 1 to get the easy marks on question 1, rather than spending another 10 minutes on question 2 and maybe getting 1 or 2 more marks.
Yeah, completely agree. And through that strategy, you're going to answer 100 marks. And you're looking to get 50 out of that minimum, whereas quite a lot of students only do, say, 70 or 80 marks. Oh my word, that is really putting yourself at a disadvantage on there. But I do apologise to the viewers and to yourself, Ayrton, for stealing your thunder on that one. On there,
no, that is my biggest tip. I did that in the exam, and I'd recommend that to anybody else. Just writing down what time you've got for each question. And sticking to that. You've got to be so strict with yourself in the exam. Even though you're panicking and the adrenaline's going, if you stick to your times, then you can, like James says, you can work through 100 marks rather than limiting yourself to 80 or 75.
Spot on. Yeah, and everyone's going to have different strategies, whether it be like yourself, question 2, or if you want to go straight into question 1. But I think picking up on those easier marks that you're more comfortable with, would you agree, it gives you a bit more momentum in the exam, that you've got a bit more confidence about you?
Yeah, you've got to have that momentum. You've got to keep going. There's no point getting your head down if a question comes up that you don't think, you're not trying to get 100 marks. You're not even trying to get 66. You're trying to get 50, and then you're happy days.
Well, there are viewers out there, Ayrton, going, just give me the 66 now, that'd be lovely. But are there any other final nuggets of information, Ayrton, that you couldn't sleep tonight if you didn't tell the viewers that could just help them to get those final marks for their upcoming exam?
Yeah, so two things. One is the conceptual framework. It's a theme, it's a river that runs all the way through the exam. So knowing the phrase faithful representation and relevant comparable information, you've got to use that. It comes up every time. And IFRS 13, fair value measurement, is my golden nugget of that will come up. You won't even know that you're using it, but you talk about fair value in so many other topics. So you need to be able to spot that and talk about that in the exam.
Rock and roll. That's awesome stuff. Well, I mean, thank you so much for today, for giving up some of your time on the Sunday as well. Your insights there are definitely going to help some students as well. So if you're watching this around the world, feel free to leave us a comment at the bottom. I love to read them. I'm going to send Ayrton the link for this video as well to keep in touch with it. Let us know how you get on, where you're sitting the exam, and also what you thought of the tips. But Ayrton, have you enjoyed today? Thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah, no, really enjoyed it. Obviously, James will probably put a link to my LinkedIn down below, and then if you've got any questions on the video or what I've spoke about, just give us a message on LinkedIn. Happy to connect.
Oh, spot on, mate. Thank you very much. I mean, if they've enjoyed the video today, which obviously, Ayrton, if they're watching at this point, they're definitely going to give it a big like, and obviously to subscribe. So if we do any more videos, they're not going to miss your face on the next one, are they?
Hopefully with a pass under my belt and talk about that.
Hey, that's all right. Any other final words of wisdom? If a student's got the exam tomorrow?
Good luck. Stay calm, stick to your timings and work through it.
And have fun, obviously.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Obviously. Well, on that bombshell, cheers, guys. Bye.